So welcome to SABR Boston, December hot stove edition. Last month, a lot of you joined us. It was our pity party for the Red Sox, having a lousy 78 and 84 season. This month, we are having our hot stove discussion. We're going from pity to rage over the failure of the Red Sox to re-sign a cornerstone player in Xander Bogaerts. And we are hoping that we are going to have FanGraphs' own and SABR Boston's own David Laurila to join us. So far, he has not tuned in, but he might be on the phones learning about trades. You never know. But
Bill,
we are
Bill
hoping
is here, though. Yeah,
we do have Bill, and we are going to. And if we don't get David, we'll just kind of wing it and have discussion among ourselves. I apologize if that ends up being the case for those of you who were looking forward to hearing from him, but he still might tune in. And so I thought just to start us off really quick before we get into Joanne and her poems, I just wanted to say that I couldn't really remember the last time that I had such a swing of emotions between high and low, not in a game situation, right? Where the Red Sox, signed, Jansen, and then they signed Yoshida, and people are kind of split on whether how great those are going to be. But I was very enthusiastic about them, and then of course all the rumors that we were going to get Bogaerts. I mean, it was it was everywhere that Bogaerts was going to resign, and then bang. I mean, my son texted me and, "Dad, did you hear?" And it was just wow. Talk about going from not only am I thinking, okay, we got Bogaerts, but now we're gonna have Devers too, right? I mean, it's like I just went from being like, okay, we're set for the next 5 years, to just being like, oh my God, they did it again. They didn't sign this guy when they should have.
I don't even know if I'm muted or not.
Whoever said that is not muted, but that's okay. They can mute them now. And I'm still waiting to see if Bill is coming in, but I do not see anybody else in the waiting room. And
David Laurila is trying to get in at the moment. No one sent him a link for the event. So I just got an email from
sent him a link. Hasn't he gotten all the links that we've been sending out for like weeks, like Boston Day Farmer?
I just sent him one.
All right. So all right. So he's blaming us. But anyway, so all right. So I will just say that it was an incredible swing of emotions. I'm sure some of you feel the same way. But the first thing I thought of, besides the fact that they did it again, was when in the winter of 2018, after the last World Series championship, I was in Aruba with my family, and it was like Xander Bogaerts stuff everywhere. I mean, it was like there was so much pride in this guy as their favorite son. And I got a T-shirt that's like Bogaerts on the back with gold and Aruba, and I would hold it up, but it ends up coming out like psychedelic kind of. I don't know. Let's see if you can see it. Hold on. Look at that. See, I don't know what's with the psychedelic stuff there, but anyway. So, and I was just so proud that we had him, and I'm just that's the first thing. And of course, I put the T-shirt on as my personal protest against this whole thing. Still looking and waiting for David to come in. Oh, there he is. I'm letting him in. All right. We have a David Laurila sighting. Okay. So I will first pass the torch to Joanne, who is going to read a poem about another off season, probably about 105 years ago by the Red Sox. And then I think a few other folks might have sent poems in that she could read, and then we will get on to our main speaker.
That's right. Okay. All right. Larry Pucciarelli, get ready. I know that you have written a parody of this poem, and I would like you to read it if you do have it in hand. So get that ready. Anyway, This came up as sort of a parallel situation when it comes to like what's happening now in Boston. It has happened before. And we're going to have to go back a little bit over 100 years in order to find it. But what I did find was that somebody actually recognized it back in 1918, as the 1918 season was just getting into spring training and all. And they had very similar sentiments that we have today. Anyway, this is a poem that was in the Boston Traveler on March 25th, 1918. So the title is Rhymes of a Red Sox. And apparently it was written at Hot Springs, Arkansas. So it must have been at the beginning of spring training down there. Okay, it says, we sit here and dream of the pennant times that come at the end of the play. Alluring they lie under October's sky and ever so far away. We sit here and dream of the team that we had, Duff, Jack, Larry, and Shore. It brought trouble and woe to see them all go. Stars of the team of yore. We sit here and dream of the pennant times that loom up despite the pang of those boys that we lost, but we discount the cost with McInnes, Strunk, Bush, and Shang. So we're sort of in the same situation. I put that poem out on one of the notices that was sent around, and Larry Pucciarelli did come up with his own parody of it. And I'm wondering if Larry might, want to like put on his video and unmute. And if he has that poem handy, I'd like him to read it. Larry.
Hello.
Hello, there you are. There you are. Put up your video too. We want to see you.
I have no idea how to do this stuff, and I'm looking for the poem from the
Down in the bottom where it says, either stop video or, you can take your X off if you hit it.
Right here, Larry.
Oh, look, he's got an assistant.
That's right. He's got an assistant. Yay. There he is.
The email.
They can.
There you are. Beautiful.
Hmm.
We hear so much from you, and now it's time that we hear your particular take on it. Do you have the poem handy?
No, I'm looking for it
You
from.
probably should have thought of having Joanne tell him ahead of time.
I know.
What if we could do it at the end of the meeting and then give you a little time to find it?
Yeah, because by that time I'll have it up too.
Yeah, we don't want to keep folks waiting for David. So
No, go ahead.
all right. So Bill, do you want to introduce our speaker tonight? And I don't know if you want to do a little Q&A with him, or I could, or we could just let him wing it.
I can start. I may have to leave almost unpredictably here because of some stuff going on in my house. But how many years have we known each other, David? 5 or 6 years now, maybe?
Well, it's got to be longer than that.
It's gonna be, no, I remember seeing you on the field at the 2013 after the Red Sox won the World Series. So, yeah, it's gonna be 10 years or so, but.
Well, we first met when the SABR meetings were held over on the other side of Harvard Square.
The Quaker Meeting House, maybe.
Yes. How
Seamus
long ago
Grady.
was that?
Yeah, well, so
That's
more
gotta
than
be
a
at least
decade ago.
10 years, yeah.
15 years plus, maybe. We sit next to each other this year in the Fenway press box. That's where they seem to put us. Except one time that they stuck Dan Shaughnessy in between us for some reason, which I'm not sure why. But,
No
that-
comment.
yeah, exactly. But David, you explain your career development here in Boston. You're with Baseball Prospectus, now with FanGraphs. This year, for the first time, you voted in the Hall of Fame?
No,
election?
this is my third.
Third, okay. And you were
Yeah,
over at Fenway Park today for a press conference, I guess.
Yeah, for the Yoshida press conference.
Mhm.
Yeah, I missed Kenley Jansen's conference 2 days ago because I had a RMV meeting or appointment rather to get a new driver's license. And I think everybody hearing this knows that when you go in, it
Yeah.
happens a lot later than your schedule. So I missed Kenley.
Yeah.
But I did Yoshida today. There were a lot of people there for it. One thing I thought was pretty cool is, and maybe some of you, this was probably on the news, is he introduced himself in English and spoke several sentences which included, "I don't speak English." So I don't know how many times he rehearsed what he said, but it was more than just, 2 sentences. So, it was cool. He getting paid very well. And my best guess is he'll be a better version of Andrew Benintendi if I had to try to comp him to anybody.
I just saw a note that they designated Cheater Downs for assignment to make room for him on the roster.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my points. Like, ironic, isn't it? Like
Hmm.
one of our stars from the Mookie trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chaim was asked about that when the press conference ended and, things broke up. Chaim addressed a scrum of reporters, as did Scott Boras, who was there, as did Yoshida, mostly the Japanese reporters, but I did get in there to ask him about who the best pitchers were he faced in Japan, which was an interesting thing to do.
That's a cool question.
You
One
were
of
just
whom,
out, you were just out at the winter meetings also, right?
I was in the GM meetings last month, so.
Yeah. So tell us.
People ask me sometimes, what do you do when baseball season ends? The answer is always, there's always baseball.
Tell everybody what you do on the nature of your work. And how you got into it, but what you do on let's say a daily or weekly basis.
Oh, I don't know how interesting that is, Bill. It's like a lot of people, I just started writing about baseball at one point, and I've been doing this for about 20 years. I think I'm up to 12 at FanGraphs.
Mhm.
And I talk to baseball players for a living for the most part. And
Yeah,
I do
right.
a lot of interviews.
And you write,
It's
you have a
fun.
weekly Sunday notes column, but you have almost every day.
Well, it varies a lot this week. The big thing I finished today is I filled out my Hall of Fame ballot. I don't know how much I want to talk about exactly who I voted for because, I'll release it on social media in the next few days, but I want to write about it at the same time.
Sure.
I'm one of those people who thinks it is highly inappropriate to send in a ballot and then refuse to tell people who you didn't vote for.
Yeah. Can I jump in for a second, Bill? I mean, just because we plugged this as a discussion about the move. So as our man who was on the scene in Arizona, I would just like to know, how you feel about the moves that the Red Sox made and kind of if you could give us a feeling of what that day was like when they made these 2 big signings and Jansen and Yoshida, and then, lost Bogey shortly thereafter.
Well, it was the meetings were in San Diego this year.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what yeah, you're right. Okay,
Um,
so make me look stupid, but that's fine. Continue.
That's my job.
Right. You're doing a great job.
No, I mean to make myself look stupid. I left the winter meetings on the final day. I missed the Rule 5. And I think it's notable too that the Red Sox lost multiple players in the Rule 5 draft, including the first pick, and protected people like Cheater Downs who were now released. So I think that was time will tell if Thad Ward or the other, losses turn into anybody, they may not. But anyway, I left the last day, so I didn't learn about the Bogarts until the next morning. I didn't stay up late enough after getting home. I'm not surprised. I personally wouldn't have given him the money.
Isn't it not really? I mean, I thought Chad Finn had a great point on this, that it's not really about the crazy contract San Diego gave him as much as it's about the fact that the Red Sox had a year and a half to kind of make this happen and maybe took it for granted that they didn't have to work as hard as they probably should have to make it happen.
Yeah, I didn't read Chad's column today. I should certainly. We never really know what goes on behind the scenes. The Red Sox obviously had time, but you circle back to the Mookie Betts. I think there's a lot of reason to believe that he didn't want to stay here and he wasn't going to sign. How accurate the numbers to Bogarts that are being reported are, I don't know. But even if they are accurate, it may be that the Red Sox decided that they didn't want to go that many years and that much money for a 30-year-old shortstop, which is understandable.
But don't you think they could have?
That contract will look terrible.
No, I
within
agree. You're
5
paying
years.
for the first few years, but what I feel, just people that I'm reading and people I'm talking to, it seems like there used to be, they would give them in the early years of this ownership, the first 10, 15 years, they would give the long contracts to get the guys like a Manny or a Pedro or whatever. And I just feel like they seem to be going, I'm not going to say Tampa Bay, but they're going kind of on, you know, a different direction now. And is it because they feel after 4 championships, they don't have to hustle as much? I mean, I'm just curious. I just think Boston fans are between this and Mookie, it's and what we have in return, which is not a heck of a lot.
Yeah, I remember back though, on that vein about Boston fans, this Boston fans that, there was a time, I guess pre-2004, where Yankee fans were called entitled. And I think the Red Sox fans are, I have to admit, are guilty of that. Over time, they've become more and more entitled that we should pay everything we're supposed to win. We're not going to tolerate not winning. And that's well and cool. We want to win every year, but there is a sense of entitlement that's a little bit chafing. I know from a national perspective on the way Red Sox fans are looked at.
Well, I mean, I agree that there is definitely some entitlement, and the same thing with the Patriots now. It's like you have a quarterback in his second year and he's winning more than half his games and they think the guy's a stiff, but because he's not Tom Brady. But I mean, forget about winning. I mean, don't you just, when you have cornerstone players that have proven they can play in Boston, Lester, Betts, of course, Lester was a bunch of years ago, but it's the same. I mean, what's the Yankees paid what they had to keep Judge there. The Red Sox have one of the top 5 payrolls, and certainly, and I read somewhere where they've paid like almost none, like very little payroll tax in the course of 10 or 15 years. Like everyone they used to make a big deal about that. Certainly money isn't the issue here. Why can't they sometimes pay a lot of money to keep a guy who is a face of a franchise?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either. I did read recently, and I'm forgetting the exact number, but I believe that there are a few teams, or maybe it's one team whose payroll tax alone exceeds the salary expenditures of maybe 5 or 6 teams. Is that correct?
I saw that. I thought it was either the Dodgers or the Yankees. Yeah.
And that's bad for baseball. There are too many haves and have-nots. Does that mean that you meant, I don't like the Tampa Bay analogy that gets used a lot either.
Yeah.
Because as you said, the Red Sox are near the top in payroll. It's not like they don't spend. But even the owners like in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and a few others who won't spend, they could afford to spend far, far more than they do. And I think it's bad for baseball that you balance off the Cohens and I'm forgetting the name of the guy in San Diego. Yeah. The owner. Sidler maybe.
Yeah, and I think there are people who argue that the NFL is on top now because there isn't a have and a have not situation, and there's parity because there's a salary cap, and but that's a whole nother discussion. I'm wondering, how do you feel about this team right now? What do you think that they need to address next? Certainly they address the bullpen. Some people think the guy they signed is old, at least the closer, but actually the setup guy they got, Miller or no, who Martin, actually, that he's got me excited based on what I saw from his stats, second half of last year. But how do you feel about things going forward, and what do you think they need to do in the remainder of the winter?
Well, they need a starter. That's obvious, but I could be on a Zoom in maybe 25 or 26 other markets now, and I would say the same thing. Every team needs
Mhm.
starters. I hope Evaldi comes back. I think it's a perfect fit. I saw Waka rumors to somewhere else today, but you take that with a grain of salt. I expect trades is what I expect. I don't know who the Red Sox are going to look to trade. They don't have a ton of big time prospects. They don't have any Yoan Moncadas now that they can get, Sale in a package for. Yeah, there are some tough calls. They need either a center fielder or a second baseman. Yeah, there are holes. I think on paper, the team is better than a lot of fans give them credit for. The big issue maybe is that they play in the AL East.
Right.
Although that will be eased a little bit by the balanced schedule as far as the head-to-head, the Red Sox own record. But if you end up with, the Yankees and Toronto maybe winning 105 games each, I guess it won't matter if the Red Sox win 90.
Yep. Yeah, no, it is true. And especially last year, I think the disparity of the Red Sox record against everybody else except the East was tremendous. Which I know was one thing that really frustrated fans. And you're right, maybe with that, not without that heavy loaded, East schedule. Do you think that I've heard some talk of Story being moved to short? Do you think that's a possible fit? I mean, some people say his arm isn't good enough for that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I haven't looked at the StatCast metrics on specifically what his arm was this year. I'm guessing they weren't great. You also have to consider Bogarts doesn't have the best shortstop arm in baseball. He's not going to be confused with, Shawan Dunston or Aurelio Rodriguez or, so many other guys. I'm going old school here.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, yeah, he can certainly play shortstop in the big leagues, but it's a matter of who is available. Heim is going to make decisions based on who he can acquire because there are some moving pieces. Hernandez being one, he can play, any one of a few places.
Right.
I just hope we don't see Duran in center.
Yeah.
Apologies if anybody in the Jaron Duran family is watching this Zoom.
Do you think that the knee-jerk reaction of the fans, I mean, there were people even on the radio saying, Chaim's got to go, the owner's got to go. I mean, obviously people in the heat of the moment are going to be angry, but do you feel like do you think it's warranted? And it sounds like you don't, that, they're not as hungry as they used to be. Because they're doing things like buying soccer teams and hockey teams and putting up music venues, and it just, or do you think that's
Well, I think one thing that's very important, and I think most people on the Zoom call know this, is when it comes to huge expenditures, like signing a Bogarts for that kind of money, and it'll be the same with the Devers extension. That's not Chaim Bloom's call.
Right.
He's going to help steer that ship, but that is John Henry primarily, and Sam Kennedy below that.
These people complaining are saying everybody should go.
We're going to sign all of these guys for as much money as it takes. Okay, that it doesn't work that way. And Chaim gets way too much blame. Has he made mistakes? 100%, but he does not make the calls. No GM does on, 150, 180, whatever $1 million deals.
Right. So I guess that is why I'm wondering the people that are saying, is it time for these guys? Is it time for John Henry to, and Warner to just pass the torch to somebody else who's hungrier?
Right. But to whom? The owner or the son of the owner in Cincinnati, very stupidly this spring, on pressure of they need to sell, he's saying, I don't know what were his words, is where are people going to go or something, or,
Yeah.
sort of be careful what you wish for with the next owner. The Henry Werner Group has done very well here, and they do have a high payroll. So are there any other Steve Cohens out there who are going to spend freely, like to an absurd amount? I have no idea. I don't think we want Elon Musk to buy the Red Sox.
No, thanks. And of course, it's also been shown that spending and spending and spending doesn't necessarily mean you get a championship anyway.
Absolutely. That has been proven many times over.
So going back to Yoshida, it seems like some people are really high on him and other people think it's kind of a risk. In general, do you have a feeling, I mean, you mentioned, you asked him about pitching. I mean, there obviously is many examples of guys making that transition over here and doing great, but then of course there are other examples where they haven't. Do you have a sense of, do you said Yoshida, you think looks more like a Benintendi type, good hitter,
Right,
good hitter, and maybe
yeah, there was talk today during the presser about him having sneaky good power. And one thing that was cited, he doesn't have the type of uppercut swing with loft, that it's a more, level swing that actually produces power. And that's a good thing with all of the riding fastballs we're seeing. I talked to, after the conference, Gus Quattlebaum, who is one of the primary international scouts. I should know if he actually leads the international scouting department. I'm not sure on that, but I know that he played a really key role. He saw Yoshida play many times. He talked about how there's a lot more velocity in Japan now than there used to be, that it's no longer just guys throwing 90 miles an hour. You have guys like Roki Sasaki throwing 102, Senga, who came to the Mets, throws in the upper 90s. Arguably the best pitcher in Japan may come over as soon as next year if he can be posted. Yoshida, I asked him if his name is spacing on his name, Yamamoto. It's actually one of his teammates. I asked, does he want to come over here? And Yoshida told me that yes, he believes that he is. If he can get
so this might be a 2-for-1 kind of thing.
That would be interesting. Yes, he will get paid more than Senga, I believe. His track record over there is like eye-opening.
Well, that's exciting.
But no, on the Yoshida, he's facing good talent. One thing I asked Gus Quattlebaum, because the name Levon Moinello came up in our conversation. It's a Cuban left-hander who throws in the mid-90s. And Yoshida, when I brought him up, said he has a phenomenal breaking ball. Quattlebaum told me that he saw him face him this year. And this is a left-on-left matchup. And with the caveat that it's a tiny sample size, one at bat, he saw him hang in and hit a line drive over the shortstop's head. That's base hit against an elite pitcher. Moinello would be having a key role in a bullpen in the US right now if he was available. He's not essentially because he's Cuban. I think he would have to, literally defect, and have trouble getting back into his homeland. That's my understanding, is why he's not here.
Okay. And how about the relievers the Red Sox have picked up? How do you feel about Martin and Jensen?
I feel they're better than the guys whose roles they're stepping into. Certainly.
I hope so. Yeah.
It's bullpens are volatile. There aren't many guys who year in, year out are great relievers. It just doesn't work that way in baseball. So I think to a certain degree, you need to be lucky almost as much as smart when you're building a bullpen.
Yeah.
The Red Sox, they got Jake Diekman last winter. That didn't work out well at all. He way underachieved what he had been doing.
Yeah.
Other guys, other teams, you could go to many teams, the Orioles, Bautista. Coming into the season, it's like, okay, who's this guy? Looks like he has a good arm. And he was great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, like last year with the Red
you have
Sox.
to look
with
under the right
Walker,
rocks.
I mean, there's guys that the Red Sox had a couple guys last year, starters and relievers that overachieved, but unfortunately it was in the bullpen. It seemed like it was more of the underachieving. It was probably the single biggest problem last year. I would think.
Yeah, there were a lot of problems last year. After the middle of the season, there were a lot of problems.
Yeah. Anything else so you're saying at this point, second baseman, center fielder,
Right-handed bat,
yep.
for sure. You
Yep.
look at their projected lineup, it's very left-handy. So if you don't have guys like even Bobby Dahlbeck, who I assume will be traded, but his value may be so low in the market that he comes back and suddenly turns into a hitter. Maybe he'll be George Scott. George Scott was good at first, again,
Yep.
going really old school, but
Yep.
a lot of people hearing this know, very good as a rookie, then completely fell off the cliff, and then he became George Scott.
Yeah. Who do you think were the biggest winners at the winter meetings?
Oh, boy. Probably the teams that spent the most money.
And the Mets, it's hard to argue against them.
Yeah, so the biggest winners short term, what happens down the road. It's so hard to predict.
Right.
All of these salaries and these huge contracts. It's crazy world out there right now.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen with the economics of baseball? I think most of us, when the owners locked the players out last winter, rolled our eyes because we know the owners have the money. They don't need to try to, leverage that way, but they're rich, they're wealthy businessmen.
Mhm.
So it's what they do. I think we're seeing right now that most of them are completely full of crap and saying that we need to lock the players out.
The pitch clock is coming, correct?
I believe so.
I don't know where, maybe somebody said it about Jansen or somebody that like, they're worried because, is it Jansen who's like extremely slow? There's somebody who's extremely slow. Yeah, Jansen, and they're worried that they hope the Red Sox took that into account with the signing. How he's going to do on the clock when it's actually enforced.
Yeah, it could be. When I was talking to Yoshida today, and this is through an interpreter, when Senga came up, Yoshida said that the pitch clock may be a factor for him. I didn't bring up the pitch clock. He just happened to say he likes to work very deliberately. So maybe the Mets are going to be dealing with something this year.
I think of Daisuke when I think of working deliberately.
Absolutely. No, one funny thing though with the Mets is, and Bill may remember this from, I don't know if Bill is still here.
He's in and out. Yeah, I think he's got construction going on in his house.
But when the Mets played at Fenway, was it last year? I'm losing track of all of this, but whenever, I think it was last year or 2021 rather, the Mets had so many hitters, Brandon Nimmo being one, who the pitcher, he couldn't work fast because they would step out every pitch and linger in the box. It's like, get in the box.
Yeah, are they?
It's hitters cause the pitch clock issue more than pitchers, in my opinion.
And
Or
are they
teams
putting
used to
any?
step out all the time?
Are they putting any stuff on the hitters? Andy, do you have something to say about this?
I think they are putting something on the hitters. I think at a certain point, if the hitter's not in the box and the pitcher throws the pitch, it's a strike if it's over the plate. That's my understanding.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, the new rules are pretty much in place. MLB's been training all the one of the things I do at Fenway is work clocks, and they brought a bunch of us to try out the new rules, and the new rules are going to be 18 seconds, 20 seconds from the time the ball hits the mitt of the pitcher, the clock starts 18 seconds with nobody on base, 20 seconds with men on base. If it runs down to 0 without the umpire resetting the clock, that's an automatic ball.
Wow.
If the batter's not ready to address the pitch with 8 seconds left, it's an automatic strike. All of this is to the umpire's discretion. They can do
Why
whatever
would the
they want.
umpire not start it? Why would the umpire restart it, or, you know?
Oh, lots of reasons. So we were trained on all the various reasons. And one of the big ones is when you see a foul ball happen, even if the pitcher has the ball back, we're not going to start the clock until all fielders and the bat and ball boys are out of the play. So you're going to see delays around that kind of stuff. But the umpire is going to be connected to say reset the clock at any time the umpire wants. So you set the clock again. It's going to be interesting, but you will see, especially in spring training, you will see a lot more sturm and drang by pitchers and catchers and every players and managers about the new auto balls and the auto strikes. There's going to be a lot of them in spring training. And the way they're doing that is just to make sure all major leaguers, including our friend Kenley Jansen, know that they got to be faster. They got to be faster at this. And Kenley's one of the worst. There's a bunch that aren't great, but the starters, with a runner on base, they always take more time. The other big impact is the pickoff throw rule that's going to change things. So it's going to be a faster game. And frankly, when I was in Arizona training with the clock, it's actually a much better game. I'm going to predict fans who watch the game a lot are going to like it more, even though they're going to be confused by all the new rules. But
What's the pickoff rule?
Only 2 per plate appearance. That's all you can do. You can only throw over twice.
Wow.
So
Well, you can throw over a third time, but if you don't pick the guy off, he gets second base, correct?
exactly, it's essentially a balk unless this guy's out.
Wow. No more Dave Roberts, Mariano Rivera.
Oh no,
He threw over 6 times.
I think what's going to happen with that rule is you're never going to see a second pickoff. You'll get 1 per plate appearance, and that advantages in some ways certain runners. If you get to 2 pickoffs, there's been 2 pickoffs. Now, the only thing that's going to make that guy throw over, if that runner has just got the massive lead, that's ridiculous, because he can't risk throwing it over the third because that's a balk. That's an easy base.
Wow.
So effectively, I don't see many second pickoffs happening at all in the future. I think it's going to be 1. They're going to try it, and then they got to go home. They're going to go home after that.
Boy,
Yeah,
this is exciting.
Andy, circling back to the 18-second clock, you said it is once the pitcher gets the ball in his glove. One reason pitchers take a lot of time is to get a little bit of an extra blow,
Right.
to conserve energy. Is there anything that's going to stop the catcher from holding the ball an extra 2 to 3 to 5 seconds periodically?
No, and there's nothing even for the batter or the catcher to ask for a reset. They can always ask the umpire. The umpire is in control. Okay, so the umpire, if he sees, and we saw this in Arizona at the Fall League, we saw a catcher delaying, and the umpire can quickly say to any player on the field who's causing a delay, they can say, "This is your warning. This is your last chance." And they can call an auto ball on the catcher who's fiddling also. But the rule is in place to just try to speed up the game. And frankly, like I said, I was a skeptic going in. I thought it was a bad rule. I thought all these rules were bad rules. They shouldn't have, adopted them because, I'm an old gray hair who kind of likes the game as it is. But I'm telling you, it's a better game to watch these pitches happen back to back to back. So now your mileage may vary. Everyone can have a different view of this when we see it next year, but it's coming, and I think it's better for the game.
I don't think there's anybody who's going to argue that the games have just gotten too long. I mean, it is a little weird to think of auto balls and strikes and auto balks, but I mean, games are 2.5 hours or less instead of 3.5. I mean, I'm all for that. And guys stepping in and out a million times. I mean, you watch a game from the 70s on YouTube and you're just like, damn, I missed this,
Right, it's getting closer to that. That's what the whole point of the pitch clock is. MLB's been pretty thoughtful on how to implement these rules, and essentially, like most things, the umpire is in control. The pitch clock operator, hitting the buttons is just following the lead of the umpire. Okay, so the umpire
umpires are not going to be wearing FTX patches this year.
No, they're not.
So
I don't think there's going to be a lot of those auto balls, because people will adjust to it very quickly.
yeah, no, you're right. It's the same thing with the pitchers going over, not going to throw over twice.
You'll see them in spring training. Trust
Yeah,
me,
I thought-
lots in the spring training.
Unless you had any other questions, Bill, of your own for David. David, if it's okay with you, can we open it up to other people if they have questions for you about about signings and things of that nature, or if anybody else maybe wants to offer their own feelings about how things are going with the Sox?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, one quick thing on the automated strike zone, which is coming probably soon. When I was in the Arizona Fall League, which I spent about a week there, 8 days, one of the ballparks was using it, and batters were allowed to challenge strike calls.
Wow.
And they showed it up on the screen. It was very quick. So you could see if it was a strike or not within a couple of seconds. So I thought that actually worked very efficiently, and it worked well. Until the point where there was one game where it seemed like it was challenged too much. So even though the extra time was pretty minimal, it was, okay, come on now. That's, that wasn't strike 3. Why are you challenging this call?
That is interesting. All right, we got some questions here. I want to go to Walter first and then Mark.
Okay, thanks. David, first of all, I love your work. You can sit there and be modest all you want. Your column on Sunday is one of the first things I read on my phone.
Oh, thank you. The check's in the mail.
Well, I was a sports writer once. I hope they pay you better than they paid me.
Yeah, probably not there either.
No. I actually watched the stream of today's press conference as well. And one of the things, and Jesus, Scott Boras, is Scott Boras representing like everybody? But the answer is yes, I guess. But question, they made it pretty clear. I know Yoshida's defense is not his strong suit. He's a left field only. There's been speculation he might DH. But boy, it sure sounded like they were handing him the left field position today. And which leads me to believe, do you think Alex Verdugo is going to be traded? Or possibly?
It's certainly, I don't think there is anybody on the team who couldn't be traded, number one. Trading Verdugo makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, if you trade Verdugo, you're already lacking outfielders, relatively speaking.
Right.
Red Sox, this is not, Benintendi, Betts, and Bradley in their prime, or Evans or, Rice, et cetera, et cetera. The Red Sox, this is one of the weakest outfielders I think the Red Sox have had in my lifetime. So if they trade Verdugo, who do they replace him with?
Well, the reason I thought of it is, I don't know how they feel about his defense in right field. And in fact, I actually was texting with a Yankee fan friend of mine today. And we proposed Verdugo for Gleyber Torres. Who says no?
Probably, that's a good question. Yeah, most theoretical trades like that are sort of, oh, come on. That's actually not a bad idea.
You got a right-handed power hitting middle infielder, which the Red Sox need desperately.
Right. And maybe that turns into Cater for Lyle, if we trade with the Yankees.
Oh, God forbid.
Don't go there.
Yeah,
All
these
right,
teams don't trade
thank you.
very often with each other. You
All
know,
right, how
for
about you,
exactly
Mark?
that reason.
No, they don't.
I just remember Mario Guerrero was in that trade too, but that's a long time ago. But anyway, I'm a Phillies fan, and what are your thoughts? I mean, it seems as though the Red Sox were a bit surprised that the Phillies took Noah Song in the Rule 5 draft. I actually saw Noah Song pitch at Fenway in the Army-Navy game in 2018 at Fenway. He looked great. Do we know how long it'll be before the Navy will allow him to come out and play professional ball again because he's an aviator? Does anybody know that? And what are your thoughts about Noah Song and the Red Sox and the Red Sox being a bit surprised at that?
Well, I think my take on that is that Dave Dombrowski and Sam Fuld are really hoping that the Navy keeps him for one more year.
Right.
Because
Right.
Right,
Correct.
because if they release him now as a Rule 5, he has to be on the roster the whole year. My understanding is a year henceforth, it's a pretty limited amount of time that he has to be in the big leagues. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I understand. And I understand, happened to meet up. I used to work for the Navy, meet up with somebody who was in the Navy. He said, yeah, when they're an aviator, they have to fulfill 6 years of flying. And he hasn't done that yet. But I can tell you I'll tell you, when he pitched for Navy, he was really good. I mean, again, this is all limited information and all that. I just found that it was a pretty intriguing move on the Phillies' part. That's all.
No, I was surprised with his track record of how little he's pitched and the likelihood he may not pitch for another year or two. As electric as that arm is, how much are you going to lose in development? I think it was a real coin flip move by the Phillies. I think they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, hoping that it's another year before
Right.
they have to worry about it.
All right. Thank you.
Andy, did you have another question or comment?
Well, I was going to talk about the potential robot strike zone and what David saw in the Arizona Fall League 2, the challenge system. If you'd asked me, months ago, I'd have said the probability of the auto strike, the robot strike coming, was really high. That the pressure was to get it right. But I think this challenge system now is much more likely. They surveyed players, umpires, coaches, and fans whether they want the robot ump or they want, the way it is now or some hybrid system like the challenge system. And the robot ump always loses with the players, with the coaches, with the fans, and with everyone. So the pressure's not there to do it. So I think this challenge system, and David's right, it works really fast. You just say challenge. You only have a few challenges a game, like a team does. So you have to be pretty dang sure you're going to win the challenge because you can't have many challenge losses. I really, like David said, I really think that's coming, and it probably is coming now before the robot umpires, which it's going to be interesting. I'm sure they're going to try to get it all through AAA soon, at least, do this challenge system. But it seemed to work because David said it happens right away. You're the batter, you challenge the call, and within seconds you see the three-dimensional printout thing of the ball going through the strike zone or not. And then they just,
how often do challenges work?
well, I limited sample. I just
Yeah.
saw like half a game. The thing that impressed me most, rather than right or wrong, is they happen, relatively it's not like every pitch. It's just when you're sure the umpire screwed up. But it's the thing that impressed me was how fast it was. Like David said, it's so fast. It's not like you're waiting for, like a replay call with New York City or one of these other calls you see in European football where you go to the AT thing. It's quick. It's right then. And so that made me think that's gonna be something we see, pretty soon, not next year or maybe not even the next year, but it's the thing that's coming to try to get balls and strikes correct.
And you said you get a couple a game, that's for the whole team, but I guess it depends, maybe team to team. Are the players kind of the ones who make the call, or do they look into the dugout?
So right, I'm sure this rule is going to change. If you actually read about the pitch clock changes, lots and lots of changes have occurred over the years of trial and error. And so I think whatever the challenge systems looks like, the tech is going to be quick, and the number of challenges and how you do them and who gets to do them will all be ironed out. But right now I would predict the players are going to do it. The players are going to be on no manager call on this. The player, the catcher, the pitcher, or the batter have to make the call right away within like a second. You got to do it right away. You can't be sitting there, waiting for the bench to call it or something and yell it out. It's going to be, or move on. Your instincts have to work on this. Not like we have right now it's a pitch. There's a play clock where the manager's got to make the call if you watch a game, and it's not going to last long. It's going to be very fast and very quick and determined quickly. It's not going to add much to the game. So I love David's comment. I think it was really good, and I think it's going to work. And I think it's going to work enough that the cry for the robot ump is going to probably simmer down. But we'll see. These are all just predictions by, me sitting here on ComAv and, acting like I know what's going to happen.
No, these have been great insights, Andy. I think we should have you on next year to talk about the stuff as the season goes on. Francis, you have a question.
Yes, I was just wondering, going back to the effects of the pitch clock, we've all seen that there are differences in how umpires call balls and strikes. Can we expect, and maybe Andy or David or anybody else might wish to express their thoughts on this, can we really expect uniformity in the enforcement of the pitch clock, or is it possible that some umpires will be more lenient than others?
David?
It's a good question. I mean, watching an occasional NFL game, sometimes the clock, the play clock seems to be on zero for a full beat before, the ball is snapped and they don't call it. And that's randomness, and it's like at most a second. So I assume we will see that in the baseball with the pitch clock too. Whether it goes beyond the occasional second here or there, no clue.
Got a good question here from Bruce McClure. Is the new umpire school sponsored by MLB going to help with uniformity of the strike zone? Anybody have an answer to that?
Yes.
There was a great Twilight Zone episode where there was a pitcher who was a robot, but he was too nice to throw strikes. Did anyone ever see that one? And then Rod Serling said that the guy who made him went to Japan and I think made a bunch of robot hitters and won 10 championships or something. But like usual, Rod Serling was a man ahead of the game. Now we're almost up with an hour here, so I don't know if there's any other questions for David or any other comments anybody wants to make. Then we can go back and Joanne can finish off with the poem, or if Larry wants to read it himself. Oh, wait, Walt has one more comment.
Yeah, just real quick. I'd like David to talk about what he thinks may happen with Rafael Devers.
I meant to ask that. Thank you.
Probably the best answer I could give to that is on social media, right before the winter meetings. I was asked by a friend who's actually a sports writer who doesn't cover the Red Sox, what do you expect to happen with Bogarts? And I told him that I think that he's going to re-sign here for more money and more years than the Red Sox probably should have paid. So my answer to Devers is probably pretty similar to that, actually. I think they'll offer more years and money than they did for Bogarts because he's a little bit younger and he's not playing in the middle of the infield. Whether that's enough money, yeah, it's a hard call. I guess I would expect Devers is going to go to free agency. You know, why wouldn't he?
They all seem to.
They
If they have a
do.
chance, I mean.
Is he a Boris guy? I don't know that.
Yeah.
If
I'm not
Devers is a
sure.
Boris guy, he'll go to free agency.
Do you think that Bogarts going has any impact on Devers in terms of how he feels about the situation?
That I don't know.
I mean, I know you can't read his brain,
Probably,
but
probably the impact would be if Bogey can get this kind of money in years, that I'm either going to get that from the Red Sox or I'm going to free agency and get it elsewhere. I mean, an interesting thing about the Yoshida signing that I learned today, and people who saw the presser, know this, he was posted and the Red Sox signed him. Boris didn't wait around. Yoshida didn't wait around. The Red Sox offered so much money in years, more than most people expected, that it was, okay, let's do it. It's going to be harder to do that with the Devers because the money in years are going to far, far exceed what a player coming over from NPB is going to get.
Mark, do you have another comment question?
Well, it's funny, Saul, you had said you've been watching some old games on TV. It's funny, I've been watching, there's this channel called Pluto channel network, whatever it is, and they have old games. They just have a whole channel on old MLB old games. I watch the games and I understand the games are faster, but I think, I've done some, I actually think the game, if we could do everything, if everything that baseball is trying to do to shorten the game and all that, I actually like the game today better than I liked it 30, 40 years ago, only because the players are better. There's no question that the defense, there's something came through. I saw there's no question that the defense is better now. So I think with everything else that MLB is trying to do, I think we might be going into a really good age of baseball. I really do.
Let's all hope. And you're right. I mean, today's game faster is a better game because you're right. The athleticism is so good. And also the game is more international than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Go watch those games from the 70s, unless you're, especially if it's an American League game or, it's all bunch of white guys.
And the
all right.
Yankees just got better, right?
Yeah, Rodon.
Did you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
going to happen. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Glad he went to the American League.
Wow, 6 years, 162
For
million.
me.
All right. So, all right, let's go to Joanne to wrap us up. And thank you, David, very much. Great job. Next time we'll do a better job of making sure you have the sign in. If you are our guest, I just assumed you had it. Sorry about that. And then thanks everybody for coming. And we will wrap up with Joanne's poem, and then we'll and obviously wishing everybody happy holidays.
Yeah, okay. First, I want to ask whether Larry Pucciarelli would like to read it. I do have the copy of his poem, but I want to give him first dibs on it if he is so inclined.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, this is the blues. So you have to imagine that kind of background. And it's entitled Blues for Xander, Benny, and the Mook. I woke up this morning, an old Dunkin' Donuts cup had spilled all over my sheets. I woke up this morning, Dunkin' spilled all over my feet. The news is bad this morning. Another son of Fenway has sadly hit the streets. Say goodbye, John Lester, Freddie Lynn, and Carlton Fisk today. Say farewell, Sir Mookie, Xander, and Benny too. John Henry has gone away with a soccer team for to play. My lonely eyes are searching for a reason for all my grief. My lonely heart is breaking. Don Zimmer smiles at all my grief. I think I'll lose my mind. Billy, please say a prayer for me.
Thank you,
Oh,
Larry.
that was great.
Yeah, that is really great.
We
Yeah.
should really post that on our Facebook page. You had a copy of it. All right.
I got,
um,
oh yes, I got a copy of it.
Thanks again, everybody. I think we'll probably be doing maybe something for Sabre Day in January and then obviously another Sabre meeting, and then we're gonna start going back to in-person meetings at some point. So stay tuned for that as well. And thanks, everybody. I mean, if you want to stay on and keep talking, but I think you know, we all got to go out and buy our milk and eggs and bread. So thanks, everybody, and happy holidays. Stay
Thank you
safe.
very much.
Okay,
Yeah,
take
Bye.
care, everybody.
bye.